Welcome back. So what we're going to try and do now is we're going to fake this method right here. So we're going to make it so that the change tracker is a local list in our tests to kind of try and make a simpler test that pretty much just creates a list and just has that single location. So we're not even going to use the in-memory setup that we could use with the NT Framework core. Now again, don't think of it this way. Don't think the NT Framework core in-memory setup is bad. I just believe it's going to be a bit slower than what I'm going to do right here, but it's still a very good way to do unit testing. But just remember, it's not integration testing. So even if you use the in-memory database, it's going to be, in my mind, a bit slower than what I'm going to do here, but it's not going to be an integration test. So I'm trying to find like the fastest way to do the testing by making this small trick right here, using a bit of magic, a bit of mocking, and a bit of playing around with a good idea right here. So let's try and do this. I'm going to go back to my code, and here's the small test I did. I'm just going to make a test that says when I call the add function with a valid location again, it's going to add it to DBSet change tracker list. So let's just start by, I'm going to copy all of this, and yes, you're right, I should actually go and make a small helper for this, and I will when I start seeing a pattern. So here we have like the context, we have a location, I'm going to need that location again. Let's just move it to the top. We need the mock, that's what we're going to try and change with the mocking. And then we need a repository, of course, which makes perfect sense. And then we call the add function in the end. But what we also need this time is we're going to need this new change tracker list like this. There we go. And this change tracker list is only going to be for the locations. So it's not going to be, later on, you're going to have more and more lists in the change tracker. You're going to have for all the different things that you're going to have in the database, right? Every table is going to be a change tracker list. We only want a change tracker list right here for locations in our test. And this is where I feel I'm going to make it a bit faster than the in-memory database. Not a lot, but probably a little bit. So what I want to do right here is I want to say when the context is being called for the specific add function, so I'm going to mock that now. I'm going to say when the add function is called with the location, and that's of course this location up here, when that is being called, I want to change the way it acts. So instead of using the default way that the NT Framework works, because I don't have the NT Framework available, I'm only using a mock right here, I'm going to explain that when that is called, I'm going to use the location, and that location right here is actually the location I'm passing in here. I'm going to use that location to just set it on my change tracker location list, right? So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to add that location right here. So what I've done is that I've gone in and I've made a change so that instead of calling the NT Framework course DB context, I'm just using again a mock right here, and then I'm saying when you call that add function, I'll redirect you or I'll send you another direction that just calls the change tracker and adds it right here. Now with that in place, what I can do is I can make a simple assert right here and say I expect that it will equal the location that's the expected value, should actually now be what's inside the change tracker list's first position, right? So that's the simple test that I want to do. And let's just try and see if this actually works. I'll check the unit test, and now this new test should be there. Everything runs. It adds it to the change tracker list as now a success. Pretty much meaning that, again, I know that this is just a mock, but what happens is I can actually now prove that when I call that add function, it should actually put it into this small list right here when I call the add function. So happy days. Again, I know that it calls the add function. I know it calls it with the location, and now I also know that it's actually now added to a list. And we can use that later to say when we add 5 of these guys, it should add it 5 times and stuff like that. So I can use this later for making sure that my different methods are being called correctly. So that's it for this lesson. Now you learned a little bit about the callback function, how you can kind of mock methods into doing what you want to do precisely in your unit test. See you next time. Have fun.